Your Excellency, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, ladies and gentlemen, hello. My name is Kechi. I am 24 years old, currently a senior at the University of St. Thomas, a private Catholic college in Houston, Texas, USA. I am a plane crash survivor and have been for the past 8 years. It's hard to believe that so much time has passed since my accident. Still, I know that no matter how much time passes, the memory never dulls. As everyone present is probably aware, I am one of the 2 survivors of the Sosoliso plane crash that happened in December 10th, 2005. I left Loyola Jesuit College in Abuja with 60 other students from my school for the airport to board a plane that was headed to Port Harcourt for the Christmas holidays. 20 minutes towards the end of the flight, everything went wrong because what we initially thought was just turbulence ended up being something much more serious. I remember that as chaos erupted in the plane, I held onto my friend's hand across the aisle. There was a loud, painful sound like metal scraping against metal, and I blacked out. I have no recollection of anything that happened between that moment and when I woke up a month later in Mill Park Hospital, Johannesburg. I had been flown to South Africa by Shell Hospital, Nigeria, who basically sponsored my entire care while I was in South Africa. Those were the most difficult, most painful, and emotionally draining moments of my life. I remember that the most difficult part was that there were only 2 survivors from the entire crash. It was in that moment that I really understood the word grief. Luckily, God had provided me with a loving family and friends, the kind that I believe that everyone should be blessed with. And they were my rock and my support, and through them I was able to achieve the level of spiritual growth necessary to come through this ordeal, not just physically but also mentally stable. After that, I was sent here to America for long-term treatment. I was first under Shriners Burns Hospital, Galveston, with Dr. McCauley as my surgeon, and they treated me for free until I turned 21. After that, I was sent to Baltimore to Good Samaritan Hospital under the care of Dr. Spence and have been under Dr. Spence ever since. Throughout this experience, I have received help from so many different people from all over the world, organizations and individuals alike. Dr. Moses, a doctor at the Shell Hospital in Port Harcourt, and Engineer Basil Omiyi, who was the MD of Shell at the time of my accident. These 2 people played a large part in getting Shell to financially support my treatment all the way from South Africa down to getting me here to America for continued treatment. When I started surgeries in Baltimore, because of the expense, 2 of my very close friends, Somachiku Sasoloka and Yimi Omofuma, decided to hold a fundraiser in Lagos to raise money for my expenses, my surgical expenses. And after the fundraiser, the Rivers State and Lagos State governments also decided to provide financial support for me. I really wish I could mention every single person, individual and organization alike that have helped me, but I just want to say to every single one of you that I am forever grateful for everything that you've done to help me financially or otherwise. The fact is that this experience has not been an easy one, and not just from a medical point of view, because my family has had to live in separation for the past 8 years, with my dad staying back home in Nigeria because of his business. He only makes yearly trips to come and stay with us for a while here in America. And also, my mom has had to put her life on hold for me ever since the accident happened because she's my primary carer and she's the one that helps me, especially after surgeries. And since I do have future surgeries scheduled, I know that this isn't going to change anytime soon. Still, I completely trust in God, and I just know in my spirit that everything is going the way that He has planned, and I know that I don't need to worry about the future. Ever since I have been here in America, I have followed every single plane crash that has happened since 2005, and there have been quite a lot of plane crashes in Nigeria since mine. Because I remember that there was one that happened exactly a year after mine. It was the ADC plane crash of 2006. And I remember that when that plane crash happened, I was catapulted back to all those memories of loss and grief and pain, and remembering all those families of the 107 victims from my plane crash who are still grieving till today. And I realized that even more families are going through grief because of loved ones that they lost in plane crashes. And it's like that every single time there's another plane crash. Even more families are added to the list of people who are grieving because of this kind of loss. Your Excellency, there are many accidents and many deaths that happen in Nigeria that cannot be controlled. Disease, car accidents, even just walking on the streets at night. But this is a kind of loss that can be controlled. And I'm talking about the aviation industry in Nigeria. The fact is that people can't just stop flying. They need to get to places. And no one can deny that the aviation industry in our country has improved the efficiency in the lives of many Nigerians. But while there is risk in any endeavor, the frequency with which plane crashes happen in Nigeria increases this risk 100-fold. I have friends that can't board a plane anywhere in the world without feeling so much fear and foreboding because of the amount of plane crashes that happen in Nigeria. I have friends that even when they do board planes, they are constantly, incessantly praying throughout the entire flight until they reach their destinations. These accidents affect everyone and not just people who are directly related to anyone who passes away in a plane crash. I was in a plane crash and thank God I survived. Mrs. Buni survived, but 107 people did not. And even more people have died in plane crashes ever since my accident in 2005. But then what happens now? Where do we go from here? This is what I believe. The aviation industry in Nigeria and in any other country is not an isolated part of the economy. So for any improvements to work on it, then other factors have to be improved alongside it. The number one factor that comes to mind is rescue. After my accident, the first fire truck that made it to the scene of the plane crash had no water in its tanks. And this shouldn't be, because any nation that has a developed aviation industry should have a very efficient emergency response system. Another thing that comes to mind is the airworthiness of the aircraft that are allowed in our skies. There should be a standard for the quality of planes that we allow to fly in our local skies. Accidents do happen, even in countries with the best planes and the best system. Accidents do happen here in America too, though not nearly as frequently as they do happen back home. But even when they do happen, the loss of life is relatively minimal. And this is because here, they try to provide the most efficient and the best aircrafts for commercial use and even for industrial use. And this is how it should be in any country with an aviation industry. The last factor that comes to mind is rehabilitation and infrastructure. Let's say that in the event of a plane crash, multiple people survive with the same level of burns that I have. But where do we go from there? We don't have the proper rehabilitation centers or care facilities that would be able to provide the level of care that this level of burns requires. Your Excellency, I'm not trying to compare one nation against the other. I'm simply trying to emphasize that we as Nigerians want our nation to provide the best possible care and safety that it can for its citizens, and to just feel like the nation will care and provide for our safety as best as humanly and technologically possible. I want to thank the Abuja PTA for Loyola Jesuit College that have allowed me to become a part of this. And I feel really honored that I'm able to address fellow Nigerians and the President of Nigeria. And I just want you to know that I am always available to lend my voice to any initiative that's being taken in the future to better the aviation industry in Nigeria. I personally feel that through this project, that the memory of our 60 angels will forever be immortalized. Thank you all for listening.